Well, we got some class here in the Cup of Joe shop. After rebuilding my lathe chuck in like the sweltering heat, I decided that I would move one of my air conditioners from my house to the shop. So, no more hurricane fans. It's nice and quiet and cool in here now. So I thought I'd just share a few things with you that have been going on. As you may or may not have found out, I did my lathe chuck rebuild yesterday, and that thing is a happy camper now. I'm gonna do that every once in a while, just clean the crud out of it. And what I was having problems with was primarily the scroll and the jaws, but I was kind of curious as to what the inside of that thing looked like, so hence the video. Got a few things to show you. Made a few knobs. What these things do is they allow me to have a ready-made fence. Okay. Basically what I got is T-bolts in that slot and a knob with a thread on it. I'll show it to you. There's the T-bolt. So these things do double duty here. Let me get this thing back in. I got two of them, and the way they are now is they function as the stops for my travel, my power feed. What they used to have in there is little posts. I have some here. Yeah, here's one. So this used to screw into the T-nut, and when the table traveled over, it would push this button and stop the travel of the power feed. Well, it's a pretty useful feature if you walk away from the milling machine and forget about it. I've never done it before, but I do tend to set these stops if I'm doing something, you know, that I particularly care about. So anyways, yeah, you want to set the stop? You know, there's the stop. But that's not what this is really there for. What this is there for is to give me a reference. If I'm not using the vise and I want to set something up on the table, it's kind of difficult. If you don't have a fence, it's kind of difficult to, you know, you hook this in the T-slot or something, but you know, it's a problem. So what this, I got this idea off of one of Tom Lipton's really old videos that I saw, man, it must have been like 7-8 months ago, where he was doing something on the milling machine and he just held a block up here, and after he did it, he said, you know, that would be kind of neat to mount that there. Well, it's about 8 months later and I finally got around to doing it. So now I have a real good reference for squaring things up. You know, I usually set things up on packing, and so that works out real good, you know, for squaring stuff up, and then you clamp it down. So I put two of them on there, and so far I've been real happy with just having a 1, 2, 3 block handy for whatever I need it for. But that fence thing is the Tom Lipton gem of this particular thing here. Let's see what else. Let's check. Now it's the middle of summer. This thing's been running. This is the energy meter connected up to my machine heater that keeps the moisture down. And okay, so it's been running for a little less than 4,000 hours, and it's pulled down, say, 9 kilowatt hours. So that's, I don't know, work it in your head there. It's pretty cheap, and it's still working. Works good. You know, it just silently sits here and does what it needs to do. So, you know, keep checking back on this thing periodically and, you know, show you the progress of it. But so far, you know, I haven't had any, you know, not like in the summertime I really do, but I haven't had any rust issues on my lathe or my mill. And, you know, I suspect now that I have this air conditioner going in here, this thing's going to be running a lot less because, you know, the AC will dehumidify everything as well. Oh, let's see. Here's another one for you. I finally built a torque arm for my mill. It's hard to do looking through the camera viewfinder, but one of the issues I had with this thing is, you know, torquing the head around when it was, you know, when I was holding it, I would, you know, had to fight the drill, and I would, you know, torque the head back and forth by, you know, 1,000 to half thousand to whatever. So in the interest of taking care of that, let me lower it. I built a torque arm. And, you know, it's just a, let me see if I can get you a shot of it from way up. It's just a, you know, arm that I bolted to this plate, and, you know, holds the drill in there. Doesn't, you know, I mean, it just keeps it from rotating, so it doesn't put any external torque on the head when I'm jacking it up and down. And as you can see, it's got plenty of juice to do what it needs to do. I didn't even have the thing floored. Going down, no problem. I did put this bushing in here because if you look at what's inside of here, there's kind of like weird helical cut gears that get this thing to drive this rack. And what basically happens, you know, with the hand crank on there, you don't care, but when you screw this thing clockwise, it pulls it in, and when you unscrew it counterclockwise, it pulls it out. And so, you know, I had some brass, I made myself a little bushing, and, you know, now there's no play in it. So that might be something. If you got one of these wrong food things, you may want to, you know, build a torque arm for it. And, you know, I don't have to drill any extra holes in it or anything. I mean, those two bolts on the top, they go into existing bolt holes. So, you know, another little improvement. Let's see, what else? Oh, yes. This table. You know, when I got this thing, I'll show you what it came with. But it was your typical hunk of junk. What this used to do is, there's a bolt hole over here. And this thing would, you know, sit here like this. But, you know, only being connected on one side. And the reason they did that is so you could take the belt off easy. I understand that. But this thing would always just rotate out of, you know, just from machine vibration, the thing would rotate. And, you know, I wanted a bigger surface anyway. So what I did, you know, years ago, is I made this aluminum plate for it. You know, this bolted to it. You know, held it up, but, you know, it just made the problem even worse, because now I got this big lever arm on it hanging off by one bolt. And, you know, it really was kind of flimsy. So my next idea was, okay, let's drill a dowel pin to keep it from rotating. So I drilled a hole there, and you know, I think I put an 1/8 inch pin in there, but you know, typical. I think this is Central Machinery. But when I went to drill into this part of the casting, I hit a freaking ball bearing, and man, I could not drill through the thing. I didn't have any carbide bits back then, and I just couldn't drill through it. So I was like, oh man, you know, and I lived with that aluminum table until the other day. And then I decided I had had enough, because I was trying to, can't remember what I was trying to grind, but I was trying to grind something on this thing, and the table kept shifting, and I said, alright, that's it, I've had enough. So what I did is I made this table, 3/8 plate. I milled it on the machine so all the sides, angles, everything are 90-degree accurate. Made a weldment. That was kind of interesting, trying to keep the weld distortion to a level that would allow this thing to still be on here. But you know, I tacked it. I did the Jody tips there of, like, you know, alternating, keeping the heat out of it, and I stick welded it. It came out fine. I mean, my welds aren't, you know, anywhere near like pro welder quality type stuff, but this ain't going nowhere. And oh yes, I did put, let's see, there are 2 bolts on these, so this thing is locked at exactly 90 degrees, and I have no desire to ever change that. And that problem is now solved. So now I got a nice flat 90-degree you know, built-in gap right there, so it doesn't hit the belt. And it works great, man. Check it out. There you go. Oh yeah, and the back side of this table where the belt rides, it was horrible. They fly cut it, and man, it was rougher than the sandpaper. So I threw some 80 grit down on my piece of concrete countertop here, which fools people into thinking it's a surface plate. It's pretty flat. I mean, it's good enough for me. I'm not putting you know, surface gauges on it or anything, but it's a good flat surface. And slapped down some 3M adhesive and stuck some I think it was 80 grit down on this, and I lapped the face of that vertical thing there. So I took all the fly cutter marks out of it and everything. You know, some of these things you get good prices on them, but they're parts kits. You know, you got to do things to them to make them work. I don't think I've, you know, I mean, I'd love to be able to go out and buy, like, you know, South Bend and Starrett and, you know, all the good stuff, but, you know, reality being what it is, you're relegated to, you know, buying stuff like this. And, you know, every single piece of machinery I've had, you know, the lathe has been pretty good. I haven't had to screw with the lathe too much. I think most of the stuff that happened to this lathe happened to it before I got it. You know, I did a video back a couple months ago about fixing a roll pin in the carriage. To be honest with you, I think that thing's been gone for 10 years. But, you know, it had enough friction on it that it wasn't a problem until that, you know, until it finally became a problem and I had to fix it. But you know, my take on that is somebody ran the carriage into a hard stop under power feed, and that was the fuse they put in there to keep, you know, from breaking gears and, you know, really mangling stuff up. So, you know, I mean, the lathe I have not had too many problems with. When I got it, I had to put new bearings in it, and the headstock. You know, like I say, I got a new chuck for it. Had the roll pin issue, got a new tool post for it, but you know, other than that, I've really not had a problem with it. This thing here, on the other hand, you know, this was built back in, I think, 1988. This thing was built, you know, 2000 maybe. And, no, actually, it was probably built even later than that, maybe 2005 maybe. But, you know, as you can see, I've had to modify the living crap out of this thing. You know, some of the things I put on it were nice, like DRO, but, you know, it really needed a lot of fine-tuning. There were a lot of things, you know, like this bushing here. I mean, you know, they didn't care whether the handle had slop in it. You know, a higher quality piece of equipment would, you know, they would have put that in there. But I had to. There's a lot of things I've had to do to this thing. You know, just really poor machining on some of the stuff. I mean, hell, even this vise I got when I got it, it wasn't flat across the top. I had to mill the jaws down. You know, so, you know, you get what you pay for, I guess is what I'm saying. You want to spend $12,000 on a milling machine? Yeah, you're not going to have to mill the jaws and stick bushings in it and all that stuff. You want to pay, I mean, I don't know what I even paid for this thing, $1,500, you know, then yeah, you're going to have to do some crap to it. And, you know, you can't take big hogging cuts. You got to take little light cuts. But, you know, you got to work with what you got. And, you know, to be honest with you, I think having a less rigid machine, you know, both this and this, have caused me to develop techniques that, you know, allow me to still get good stuff out of them. So, you know, that's my opinion on it, and I'm sticking to it. What else? Oh, yeah. I also finally got around to making the Tom Lipton Ox Tool Co. bit. And when he said that it takes a long time to grind one of these things, he wasn't kidding. I think this is 8% cobalt. Yeah, it's Chinese steel. It's not Momax or anything. But just making this cutout here, I mean, it just took forever. You know, I was using a 60 grit silicon carbide wheel, and then as I got closer, I went to aluminum oxide, and then I finished it up on my tool post grinder. Or not my tool post grinder, my tool grinder. Use the right side wheel, aluminum oxide, put a 7-degree relief on everything, and man, I love this thing. I was just using it the other day to make some bushings, and oh my god, man, I mean, there's no tool changes. Now the funny thing was, I went back and I watched that video again, and it turns out he uses this point to face on. I didn't remember that part of his video, so I put a facing thing on the back side of mine. So, well, let me get this off of here. This is the normal way you use it. Okay. And then if you want to face, put it on this way. And use this end. Now, that's not necessary because, well, maybe it is, I don't know, but I've used this to face on, and so has he. This part here I used to V-groove some stuff so that when I was parting it off I already had a chamfer on it. You know, it's, whoever thought this up, it's a pretty clever person, because it just gets you all sorts of operations with one tool bit. So one of the other things I managed to take care of was to make an adapter for a center drill that goes into my tailstock. This piece started out as the test cut piece when I made this taper turning thing to drive my compound, and so I had it laying around in the scrap bucket, and I says, you know, I'm gonna make something out of that. So you know, I'm always center drilling, and you know, rather than throw the chuck in there, I said, okay, just make me a holder for that bit. And it's kind of nice. Saves some time. So there's the eject. And you can see I finished it up real good. So yeah, it goes in my rack with the rest of the stuff. Here's the dead center, which I don't really use for turning anything. It's primarily for checking to see whether tool bits are on center. This is my written. Oh no, that's I can't see through this viewfinder. That's the center drill. Here's the written small live center. That's really nice when you turn it up right up to the face of it. There's a bull nose live center. Here's my chuck. This is my standard live center that I use for just turning, you know, anything, you know, because I don't like using this written thing. It's expensive, and you know, you got to grease it up all the time. It's a specialty thing. This one here is the go-to center when I don't have to deal with any clearance stuff. And then you know, the thing, the ER32 tailstock chuck, which I have videos on as well. I did make my welder knob. And one of the things I found out about this is the tension adjustment. Basically that black swirly line going around, you know, from like the bottom all the way to like 3 o'clock, that is representative of the thickness of the blade that you're trying to weld. So it, you know, the maximum capacity of this thing is just a little over a ½ inch. So, you know, I found when I first started off, I was cranking this thing to about maybe 12 o'clock, not knowing what that swirly line meant. And I wasn't getting great welds, but you know, I've since learned, crank that sucker all the way to the right, and it works, or it works better anyways. Now the other thing I've been thinking about doing is this yellow button here. It's an anneal button, and what that really is representing there is you're supposed to manually pulse that button on and off and look at, you know, the blade in the holder and see how red it's getting. Man, I'm telling you, that's a crapshoot at best. You're lucky if you can figure out the temperature of that metal. So what I've seriously been thinking of doing here is putting a light dimmer in there, which would allow me to jack, you know, turn up the juice to full blast, get it red hot, and then ramp the current down to slowly cool off the weld, rather than having to pulse this thing and guess at the duty cycle that you're applying to it and how hot you're making it. So that's something I'm thinking about. I mean, I'm not really crazy about hacking into this welder. It's pretty nice inside. I mean, whoever modified it for a 220 single phase did a real nice job on it with you know, terminal strips and, you know, insulated terminals and everything. I mean, it's a real pro job. So, you know, I'm not really crazy about hacking into this thing, but I might do an experiment where I just hook a light dimmer up to that and just ramp it from 100%, you know, down to nothing. You know, and if it works out, just take that button out and put the knob in. So, you know, if I do that, I'll definitely show you some videos of it. Anyways, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed this, and if you like it, click the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.